Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Labella Associates, dedicated to the pursuit of partnership for more than 40 years, offering services in the development of buildings, infrastructure, environmental, and energy projects. Labella, powered by partnership. LabellaPC.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made in October of 2010 at 32 different intersections in the city of Rochester. Red light cameras went active, and for the next 6 years, Rochester was a red light camera city. The cameras were meant to deter traffic collisions, reduce injuries and fatalities. But 6 years later, then Mayor Lovely Warren ended the program after waves of community complaints. Some were about fairness. Some were about the ways that the cameras affected low-income neighborhoods in particular. So 10 years later, you've probably seen some Facebook posts or people talking about, are the red light cameras coming back? Well, the answer is no. They are not in the same form at all. A decade after the cameras were pulled off those intersections, technology has changed. And this time around, the city of Rochester is exploring whether automated traffic enforcement tools could accomplish what the original red light cameras were brought in to do. The data says that Rochester needs to do something, and the community will help decide what exactly gets done. But the status quo is both dangerous and deadly. According to city data, Rochester is significantly more dangerous than Syracuse, more dangerous than Buffalo. That's for drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists and bus traffic. Something is causing the city to see a lot more crashes than most other cities of Rochester's size. So the city is pursuing its Vision Zero plan. Maybe you've heard about that. The zero refers to traffic fatalities. The goal is zero. This month, the city is hosting more public hearings to gather community feedback. And by now, city leaders know how unpopular red light cameras 1.0 were. The question is, what is different this time? Is it speed cameras? Is it a better version of red light cameras? Is it other automated enforcement that can work? They do want to hear from you this hour and in these upcoming hearings, and we're going to welcome our guests now. In studio, Mitch Gruber is co-chair of the ROC Vision Zero Committee and a member of Rochester City Council. Hey, welcome back to the program.
Thanks.
Next to Mitch is Cody Donahue, who's co-executive director of Reconnect Rochester. Welcome back to you.
Thank you for having me back.
Across the table, Erick Stephens is a parent engagement specialist for the Healthy Kids Initiative at Common Ground Health and a proud member of the greatest neighborhood in Rochester, Charlotte.
It is the greatest neighborhood in Rochester. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Erick. Thanks for being here. Luis Burgos is a member of the El Camino Neighborhood Association. Luis says that's the greatest neighborhood in Rochester. Welcome back to the program, sir. Nice to see you. And on the line with us, let me welcome David Riley, Principal Transportation Specialist for the City of Rochester. Hello, David. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with Mitch because I was listening to an interview that Mitch did on Poder and had a chance to, really understand, number one, I think the city's desire, and I'm not doing PR for the city, you can do that, but to be very clear, because the feeling on red light cameras was really visceral for a lot of people. And the interesting thing listening to these interviews for me was that was actually true for you too. You had a couple of not great experiences with the red light cameras, right?
Yeah, I got 2 tickets for red light cameras. Both of them were at the corner of West Main and Ford Street. And in neither of those cases did I endanger anyone's life. I went about 6 inches, maybe a foot over the white line, and I stopped. And yet I still got a ticket. I fought both of them. I was a 23-year-old kid. $50 was a really tough ticket for me to take at that time. I fought them both and I lost, even though they acknowledged my behavior didn't endanger anyone. And it felt to me like it was a cash grab. It felt to me like there was no real due process. I hated the program. And I applauded when it went away just before I started on city council. However, I've also learned since then and experienced since then that we are one of the most unsafe cities to travel, whether you are a biker, a walker, a driver, a bus rider, if you're in a wheelchair, you name it. And this city, our numbers are higher when it comes to crashes, fatalities, injuries, all those things. This is all in our Vision Zero report. Just as a quick note, Buffalo has about 70,000 more people than us. We have about 1,000 more crashes annually on our streets than Buffalo. That's a really, really substantial number. And there are reasons for that. Some of them are street design, but some of them are just driver behavior. And we need to at least explore what does it look like to try to change behavior.
Okay, so that question is obvious. People are going to say why. So it's a combination of design and behavior. Can design be changed?
Absolutely. Design has to be changed. And in fact, I would look at what happens on West Main Street as a specific example right now. So that intersection of West Main and Ford, it's virtually impossible to go nearly as fast as you could have 10 years ago, because several years ago, the city did a road diet. They turned 4 lanes into 2 lanes. They put a pedestrian island in the middle and made speeds naturally come down dramatically. You know, we talked about Charlotte. One of the reasons why I'm really glad I'm being joined by Erick, Cody, and Luis is that each of the 3 of them live in different parts of our city, all of which have their own challenges. But all of us can acknowledge that the single most dangerous street to drive in, to walk in, to bike in is Lake Avenue.
Lake Avenue.
No ifs, ands, or buts. And in fact,
Yes.
it's one of the most dangerous streets in the state.
It's incredible.
And so the question is, aren't there things you can do besides enforcement? Absolutely. What we're looking at right now, and it's part of the Vision Zero initiative, it's actually point 9 in the Vision Zero plan, is specifically looking at our high injury networks, Lake Avenue being number 1, and looking at doing some substantial design changes, including maybe creating a separated bus lane, reducing number of lanes, all sorts of things. I just want to note that right now, and David Riley can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is to do substantial design changes to Lake Avenue is about $1 million per mile.
David, does that sound right?
It can certainly be costly to do a full-fledged infrastructure project on Lake Ave or any other street where you're actually moving curb lines, you're affecting underground utilities. Yeah, it can be costly. The city is doing a couple of different demonstration projects to try out different strategies to see if there are things we can do more cost effectively, more quickly, to improve safety. But to do a full-fledged street project, yeah, there's a significant cost there.
And David, can you elaborate a little on Mitch's point about design? Because a lot of what we're going to be talking about this hour is the experience of the people in the rooms coming from different neighborhoods. We'll take calls and emails from listeners as we talk about how to make streets, especially in Rochester, safer. And if people want to weigh in on automated enforcement. So again, it's not the return of red light cameras. It's a question of speed cameras. I mean, I'm very used to speed cameras in various places, Thruway and others, and we'll talk about that. But just in terms of design briefly, David, it's taken me some time to kind of internalize and get around my head what I first learned on this program, probably from Reconnect Rochester years ago, which is that there's certain things that are counterintuitive. When people think, well, if I want Lake Avenue to be safer, make it 6 lanes instead of 4. Like, add lanes. That'll space out the traffic, won't be as congested. And it's the opposite. Mitch talks about a road diet in other parts of the city going from 4 to 2. And the intuition that people have is, well, that's going to make it more congested and more dangerous. Similar with speed limits. People would say, well, if you reduce the speed limit, people are just going to speed, and it's going to be wild, and pedestrians are going to be more in danger. So can you just describe a little bit about the reality of those design elements that you see?
Sure. I think what we see in the data about when fatal and severe crashes happen is that they are not typically at those peak hours. So it's not to say that crashes don't happen during major commute times. They do. But when we see people more frequently being killed or severely injured, it's often in the overnight hours. It's when there is less congestion on the streets and people are able to go faster. So what we think about when we're designing a street project are ways to calm traffic. We're looking at ways we can design the street that naturally encourage or require drivers to go at about the speed limit we want them to. So sometimes that includes narrowing the street, a road diet, reducing unnecessary travel lanes. Sometimes it is eliminating a parking lane that's underutilized. Sometimes it's carving out more dedicated space for bicycles or pedestrians to make it a more comfortable place to walk or bike or take the bus. So there are a lot of different strategies, but yeah, typically it all boils down to trying to make the street make the built environment force the users of the street to use it the way we want them to.
But Evan, let me just make
please.
one point about this, and before we hopefully get into the meat of the subject. If we were to sit here today and say we're going to redesign all of our streets to make them all incredibly safe, just like we did with West Main Street, we would not be completed with that work until I was in my 60s. It would take decades. And we're talking about not just dollars, but physical, like the actual time in construction. We are looking at design. We are doing design The Vision Zero platform has helped us generate about $30 million in grants from the feds to do a whole lot of really interesting and creative stuff that hopefully we can talk about in this hour. But we cannot design our way out of the numbers that I stated before. We also have to accept the fact that there are drivers who every day sit at a red light, look at it and say, I don't want to do this, and just go. Every day. All of us in this room have talked about it, how we see it all the time, and I'm sure you have and a lot of listeners have. And so design doesn't change that. I've been on the show to talk about my friend Edgar Santa Cruz, who was killed on Christmas Eve 3 years ago. That was someone going 40 miles an hour, or probably more like 45 miles an hour, through a red light on Park Avenue, hit him and his dog and killed them. Design doesn't change that. So we also have to talk about enforcement. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of ways to talk about it without thinking about automation. So the question really becomes, is there a way to build an equitable, smart, thoughtful, automated enforcement program? I'm not sure that there is, but I know that we need to explore it, and that's what these meetings are about.
What do you say to people who show up at these meetings and say, no tech ever? Not just because they didn't like red light cameras, but I don't want a surveillance state, or I'm not comfortable with whatever tech is out there. It should be human enforcement only. What's your first response to that?
We're short more than 100 police officers, and I'd ask people when the last time they were able to see enforcement, traffic enforcement was on their streets, and then I also ask people if they're feeling good about the 911 response times, because no one feels good about 911 response times right now.
And you're not blaming the police for that.
We can have that conversation another time.
Okay.
But my point is that it's not like anyone is sitting here and arguing there's enough capacity to both have response times the way we want and to just add another 25 cops to a traffic enforcement detail. There just simply isn't enough bodies. So people can want that. I want it too. It's just not a reality right now.
Rochester police don't have time to do traffic detail, you're saying?
We don't have enough time to even get our 911 response rates where we want them to. So I don't know how we add a gigantic number of people on traffic enforcement. And again, almost every other city, and I would defer a lot to Cody on this because he's done a lot of research, but almost every other city that is exploring these conversations and recognizing that something needs to change. Not every city is there, but cities that recognize something needs to change about our traffic safety are looking at and thinking about automated enforcement in some way, shape, or form.
All right, let's get these other guys in here. Mitch, part of why you're here is because you, David, the city, people want feedback from the public.
Correct.
What's coming up that people should attend?
So we have 3 more meetings. We've already had 2 meetings about automated enforcement. We're going to have 3 more. The meetings are very simple. It's a quick presentation from myself and Chris Wagner, the Vision Zero co-chair, and then it is essentially 45 to 60 minutes of tabletop conversations facilitated by really good facilitators who are trying to make sure that people are having their voice heard. We're going to end up doing a community-wide survey. We're hoping for thousands of responses, getting a report, submitting it to the community, and then talking about potential next steps. The next 3 meetings are all next week. Before the show ends, I will announce when they are.
Okay. And David Riley, what question do you want the public to answer for you at these meetings? What are you looking to hear?
We're really asking people if we are to consider this technology, and we want to share a little bit about the research that we've done on the technology that's out there and how it's being implemented elsewhere. What do you want to see from the city that needs to be addressed if we're to do this? What are your concerns? What are your questions, so that the city, if it decides to move ahead with this type of program, can design it in such a way that it's really responsive to the community's concerns and questions?
Okay, so let's go around the table here. First of all, Luis Burgos, you're a member of the El Camino Neighborhood Association. Get right in that mic for me, Luis, here. Tell us about your experience and, essentially why you're here today. I understand you know what Vision Zero is about, yes. But what is it like in your neighborhood, and why are you outspoken about this?
So I jumped at the opportunity to be part of the task force because, living in the El Camino neighborhood, I've been involved in lots of planning and conversations and footwork to really elevate the quality of life there, and safety is a huge part of that. I have personally witnessed several motorcycle accidents in the neighborhood. I live near 2 schools. I see children, walking around the neighborhood. I have neighbors that have limited mobility challenges. So they cross streets very slowly. So it's very concerning to me. But beyond my own neighborhood, I've personally witnessed two terrible accidents on Park Avenue near Buckingham Street and Park Avenue while eating pizza at Chester's Cab. Give them a little plug there. I don't know if they're still there. Recently they reconstructed Park Avenue, and they built an elevated crosswalk right where I saw two bicyclists on two separate occasions get hit by cars. And I also, as it relates to Lake Avenue, I lost a godson who was in a terrible accident that was caused by a speeding drunk driver. So for all those reasons, I'm hyper focused on this and committed to doing whatever I can from my perspective to, help to improve safety on our streets across the city.
When it comes to the possible use of new technologies, are you comfortable? What are you hearing?
Absolutely. As Mitch mentioned, there's only so much that we can do with manpower. And, we found, across our society that, we've developed and taken advantage of the benefits of technology. I mean, just 6-7 years ago, very few people were doing, the Zoom meeting on a regular basis. And now it's second nature to have a Zoom meeting if it's bad weather or somebody's out of town or whatever. So there, wonderful benefits to using technology and efficiencies. And it's something that we definitely should explore. And as Mitch said, there are definitely some considerations, some drawbacks, but that's why we're having these conversations and engaging with the community.
Erick Stephens, tell us your perspective.
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate what Mitch is mentioning as far as it can't be just about design, and it makes me think, and Cody can speak more of this, about the 5 E's of traffic safety, which are engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. I'm someone that lives in the Charlotte neighborhood, and I use Lake Avenue often. And earlier in my life, I treated Lake Avenue like it was a raceway. And then as I got older and wiser and moved into work around supporting families and safe places to play, you start to realize the importance of traffic safety. And then you witness bad accidents like you've mentioned and that Mitch has dealt with the loss of a friend. You just realize the importance of just awareness and the danger that speeding cars, like I was once one of those drivers that was always on the go. And you start realizing now, as someone that drives appropriately, I'll see a car drive past me fast and they'll end up at the same red light that I end up. Like, speeding does not get you to a place quicker, but you put people's lives at risk for sure. So I was honored to be a part of this, to raise awareness about traffic violence. And for me, using the term traffic violence really connected with me. When I think of accidents is when you tip over milk or you spill your water. But when you drive fast, it's not just an accident. You're being reckless. And so turning the conversation into traffic violence for me really connected and just raised the awareness of why this should matter to me.
And what about the technology piece? What's your comfort level?
Yeah, I mean, I, like Mitch, back in the day, didn't really feel comfortable about the red light cameras as far as where they were at, but this is not what this is. And I appreciate Lewis talking about technology being used in different ways, whether it's through Zoom meetings or other ways. I think I'm still trying to get there, but I appreciate the city of Rochester and Mitch putting together these 5 meetings and really listening to what people are saying and begging us to bring people out and not just rushing to judgment, but really wanting to hear what the community wants.
All right, let's go across the table. Cody Donahue, co-executive director of Reconnect Rochester. What do you see?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I just want to emphasize Erick's point that we're in the step of community listening, and that's a really important step because there was a program here, and it was before I moved to Rochester, that caused people a lot of trauma, a lot of harm, a lot of feelings, and I think we need to get that out there, and we need to have a discussion about that, and then we need to face the challenge that we have ahead, which is, how do we deal with the problematic behavior today? How do we deal with reckless driving today? And I will also emphasize that for Reconnect Rochester, when we started talking about these conversations and Vision Zero, enforcement was not the first place that Reconnect went to. We are more focused. We've historically been more focused on infrastructure changes. I can search our shared folders and find letters going back 10, 12 years about every single road project that's happened in the city of Rochester, recommending, using engineering guidance, the kinds of infrastructure that we see as benefiting safety for everyone. So we've been engaged in that long-term build-out process, but we've also seen the importance of speed limits in reducing the harm that's caused by crashes. So, reducing a speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour has an outsized and exponential safety benefit for cyclists and pedestrians. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, findings from Boston and Seattle show that it actually reduces cases of extreme speeding. So it weeds out the extreme 45 miles an hour, in a 30 or 25 mile an hour zone that can really cause serious harm. So, enforcement is not the first place we go to, but I think it's a really important conversation to be having at this point in time because we're at historic lows for enforcement. Mitch cited some of the police constraints. I would also cite a lot of research in Rochester and beyond that shows that when police stop vehicles for traffic stops, there's often a secondary purpose that is then, induced into the situation, a pretextual stop that has nothing to do with the traffic violation, may not even have anything to do with safety. And so that is compelling to me that we could use technology responsibly to remove that issue from the equation. And I would just emphasize that the design of any kind of automated safety camera program is what's going to really make the difference here. It's how do we ensure transparency and accountability to residents and make sure that whenever we're enforcing those laws, it leads to behavior change and the eventual improvement of safety within the whole system for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask Mitch and David to briefly describe some of the possible technology, what it looks like today. Not the 2010 version, not what people remember, but what is under consideration now. And I've got phone calls and emails. I haven't even mentioned, I don't think I mentioned the phone number either, but they're coming. People want to weigh in, and we're going to get as much feedback as we can from the audience as we talk about Vision Zero. We talk about safety on the roads, what can be done, and the use of technology in this as well here. So briefly, I'll start with Mitch. Technology under consideration now. What do you want the audience to understand?
Well, in terms of what's under consideration, I'm going to push back on those words. Nothing is under consideration. We are not there's no legislation in front of city council to vote on. There's nothing that we have not gone out to RFP to any vendors. Nothing's under consideration. However, the three kinds of automated enforcement that exist legally in New York State that other cities have adopted are bus arm cameras, speed cameras, although specifically in school zones. We could talk about that in a second. And red light cameras. All three of those things are legalized by the state in various ways. I'll just share two brief things, then I'll see if David has anything to add. First, on the bus arm cameras piece, we were talking about this a little bit prior to the show, that the city rolled out bus arm cameras and the county did it two years ago at this point. There's been very little pushback because I think people acknowledge that it is an infraction to go around a school bus with a stopped arm. I think people understand that it's not a good thing to endanger babies who are trying to cross the street. So there's been very little pushback to that. Also, with that technology, I'm not going to suggest it's perfect, but what has changed in some ways is the guardrails around the program. So every single one of the tickets that are issued on that are scrubbed not just by a robot, but by a human being. So there's a lot of bad tickets that come out of that program that never make it to the end user because there is a scrubbing process being done by the powers that be.
Let me just push on this point here.
Sure.
Because I think everybody does agree that going around a bus's stop sign is bad, just as it's bad to run red lights. That was the premise of the red light cameras. But it became very nitpicky, as you mentioned, as you experienced. It became, I think, frankly, a lot of people felt misused or abused. You're describing a human interface to make sure that abuse doesn't happen. But we are in an age of automation. We're going to see AI get better, or better at least collecting data on this stuff. You're telling me human beings are going to be, if we go in this direction, your understanding is human beings would still be that layer between the final ticket or the final decision?
I personally would never support a program that did not involve some human touch to start. I mean, obviously things can evolve over time, but I think that's a huge, and we learned that from the bus arm cameras. There were a lot of bad tickets written. Am I right or am I right? My friend Luis,
I got one.
saw one himself. And so
a warning.
You got a warning.
And so there are kinks to work out, and so it's important to make sure any program like this is well thought of and designed that way. But the other thing I really want to share from a technology perspective, because this is not actually legalized by New York State, but it's legalized in other states, and I think it addresses some of the main concerns I've heard about in our community forums thus far, and that is mobile cameras. So one of the chief complaints, if not the chief complaint about the old red light camera program in Rochester was that it disproportionately impacted low-income communities.
Yep.
The cameras were disproportionately located in the Northeast and Northwest and Southwest. Those are all true statements. It was a poorly designed program in a number of ways, in my opinion. There are other communities that have adopted rotating cameras. So in the city of Dayton, which I highlight all the time, they have 8 cameras. They rotate locations every 3 months. And every 3 months, the city puts out a press release. Here are the 8 new locations. For the first several weeks of that new location, it's a warning ticket. It's no fine, but you'll get a letter to your house say, hey, you were speeding at this site. If you do it again, there's going to be a ticket. The first ticket is something like $50, then it escalates over time. And then 3 months later, rinse and repeat. And what the sheriff's office told me when I had a conversation with them is that it is very Pavlovian, that people still kind of slow down when they go to those intersections, even when the cameras are gone. One of the very legitimate complaints about our old program was, okay, so there's a light or there's a camera at the corner of West Main and Ford, so you slow down there, but once you're past Ford, there's no camera, so you just step on it again. Well, that doesn't really, again, change the behavior except for in one specific area. So there are technologies like rotating cameras that exist now that didn't 10 or 15 years ago.
So you can't bank on not having a camera at a certain place.
Correct. And at the same time,
Okay.
at the same time, if we find that a camera in one location is having a disproportionate impact on one person or one demographic or one type of infraction that's not really endangering people's lives, there's an opportunity to say, okay, you know what? Let's move it in a couple months later. If there's a community association that's saying, we are seeing massive speeds on Genesee Street every single day at this intersection, and it's putting people's lives in jeopardy, you can, boom, 3 months later, move a camera there and start to capture some data. There's ways to do that in a way that there wasn't 15 years ago.
David Riley, you want to elaborate on how the tech might work or how you see it?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Gruber covered a lot of it, but the technology itself has evolved. So now cameras can be multifunction. They can be more, to my understanding, easily customized so that we're sure that we're trying to address behavior that's genuinely putting people at risk rather than sort of a technical violation like the council member talked about earlier with being a few inches over a stop bar. I think beyond the technology itself, sort of the policy environment has evolved a lot in the last 10 years when we look at programs elsewhere in New York State. Ensuring there's an appeals process that is going to be reviewed and handled locally is really important. Rochester has a traffic violations agency now, which it did not back during the original program. Looking at commitments to dedicate net revenue, beyond any cost involved in reviewing tickets, that otherwise that money is going back into safety investments right in the community. Looking at data privacy standards. So there are a lot, I think, more precedents that we can look at from other communities, not dissimilar to us in New York State, and use as a template for how to handle some of those more policy questions.
Can I just jump in to say also that the bus arm camera program, having been out there in the county for a couple of years, we know that there's a low rate of repeat tickets. So 3% of drivers who get a bus arm camera ticket in the county don't get a second one. or only 3% get a second one or beyond that. So it's very low.
That suggests
And
that
it
it's
suggests that
actually changing behavior.
And we know there's a lot of drivers that can afford to rack up dozens of speeding tickets or red light tickets. Like we've heard that in New York City and Albany, and that's why just yesterday the state budget is announcing or is leading towards the inclusion of the Stop Super Speeders Act in it, which says if you get 16 automated enforcement tickets in a given year, then you're going to have that speed limiter device installed on your car, kind of like like a DWI, like an alcohol, blood test device to slow you down, because we know there's extreme cases of people that are not going to be swayed by the dollar amount.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I appreciate what Cody mentioned. At Common Ground Health, under the Healthy Kids Initiative, automated enforcement isn't our go-to either. It's around education and raising awareness. And from fall of 2024 through spring of 2025, we did a play perception survey. And we asked families what were their concerns around letting kids play. And the number one concern was speeding cars.
Yeah. The number one concern.
Number one concern was speeding cars. And we want neighborhoods where kids feel safe to play, adults feel safe to walk. When we look at diabetes, like high blood pressure, all these things, we need communities in neighborhoods where people feel safe to be mobile and walk around. And with cars, parents don't feel safe allowing their kids to be outside.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me grab a phone call. Waiting to jump in is Jim in Rochester. Hey, Jim, go ahead.
Hi. I saw a lot of these things in the Netherlands that they're not intersections, but I think they call them like traffic calming circles. Like that's what the translation would be. So they put like a half roundabout on a street just to slow traffic down. And when you were talking about Park Avenue, that street, even 30 miles an hour seems really high. Like, there's plenty of streets in Rochester that would be perfect candidates for that. And it doesn't really, it requires money for construction, but as far as technology and all that goes, it's very primitive, but it's very effective.
Yeah.
So I just was wondering if those are on the table or anything like that.
Yeah, so Jim, interesting question. I see Cody. First of all, I see Cody right away. The Reconnect people are like, that's a great idea. I am thinking, David Riley, of what councilmember Gruber said about how long it would take to fully redesign an entire city. So you want to respond to Jim? I mean, is this realistic? Is this time consuming? How do you see it?
So I think what Jim is describing as a mini roundabout, it's definitely a strategy we do look at. We haven't deployed it a lot, but it's something I think we want to consider more often than maybe the city has in the past as part of a bigger toolbox of traffic calming strategies. We are trying to try new things that maybe we haven't been able to do in the past. So, yeah, resources are certainly a challenge. We have had a lot of success in recent years with applying for federal and state grants that will allow us to do, I think, some really exciting projects over the next few years. I think you might see some more kind of traffic calming techniques you have not in some of those projects coming up in the near future. But I think kind of bigger picture, what we see when we look at a successful Vision Zero program in another city is that it's kind of a kitchen sink approach. So, I work in Department of Environmental Services, so we're thinking about infrastructure all day, and that's our first go-to. But, a successful initiative is looking at it also through all the lenses that Erick mentioned earlier. We need to think about education. We need to think about enforcement because, infrastructure goes a very long way. It can certainly make a huge impact. Jim's right about that, but on its own, it's not really a sufficient answer to the problem.
Okay. Jim, thank you. Erick, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was going to say, Cody is active in the space as we are as far as our complete street makeovers, where we have one coming up here in June, I believe, or May.
May 16th, actually, Saturday, May 16th. It's going to be at the corner of Genesee Park Boulevard and Pioneer. So if you know the 19th Ward, that's where it's close to where I live. Pioneer's kind of a cut through. It goes from Brooks down all the way down to Scottsville Road, and That intersection was nominated by the 19th Ward residents. The city of Rochester approved that location because they had been hearing a lot of complaints about it over the years. And the idea with a Complete Streets Makeover is to do that kind of temporary, quick build traffic calming that David talked about. So in this case, calming includes some flex posts, bollards. There's a street mural, which also has a calming effect on drivers because they see it, they slow down. We explored some additional traffic calming elements in that design. I think we didn't have enough time to kind of get to the finish line on it, but we actually have a Complete Streets Makeover every year for the next 2 years after this. So there is an online submission form on reconnectrochester.org where any neighborhood in the city can nominate an intersection for future treatment. But the goal really is to do this as a demonstration. And then eventually, as David mentioned, that the city builds out kind of a quick build program that allows lower cost, quicker solutions to see if it improves traffic safety.
You know, Cody, and it makes it, like, I feel this just reinforces that the community wants safer streets. There's going to be so many 19th Ward residents there working on that project to redesign and reimagine what safer streets could look like in Rochester. And as Cody said, there's one coming every year. We've done them in the past. I've seen the pictures of the images from Mitch's meetings. The turnouts are great. Residents want safe streets. I want safe streets.
Well, I mean, like, I could probably take email for the rest of the day here, guys. But so I got to get Luis out the door because you have an engagement to get to.
Correct.
So just let me ask you one brief question, and we'll get you out the door here. You had a warning for the city bus, or the county's bus camera.
Cities.
The cities.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Mitch. You had a warning. You didn't. It sounds like you didn't feel like it was maybe fair. Was the process good? Was it better? Because you're still feeling good about the technology here that is being talked about here, not officially proposed. What was the experience?
So two things. So what happened was the bus had stopped. The yellow lights were flashing. The arm did not come out. I slowed down and stopped, and then I said, well, I don't think the arm is going to come out, so let me go ahead and pass.
The stop sign.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So I started passing. As I was getting just past the end of the bus, the arm popped out.
The stop
I
sign,
thought,
yeah.
oh, okay, well, I got through just in time. And a couple of weeks later, I got a letter saying that I had, passed this bus. I was very upset about it. But because it was the warning period,
yeah.
I didn't have to go through to dispute it or whatnot, but we did have a conversation right at the Rock Vision Zero meeting about my experience.
So you feel like the process is going to be fair?
Yeah. I was told that that would eventually, but I got to say also, I have to add that since that experience, I come across school buses and I don't pass them even when I see the yellow lights. I freeze.
Yeah. It's like,
so it did change my behavior.
Talk about changing behavior. Hey, thank you for making time for this program today. I know you got to split.
A pleasure.
Thank you for being here. That's Luis Burgos. What we're going to do is we're going to take our only break. I'm going to get as many of your phone calls and emails in the next 15 minutes as we can when we come back.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, believing an informed and engaged community is a connected one. marycariola.org. And Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, providing members with options for in-person and virtual care, creating ways to connect to care when and where it's needed. Learn more at excelisbcbs.com.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. We're talking Vision Zero. The zero in Vision Zero is the goal of zero traffic fatalities. Rochester, as a city, is more dangerous and more deadly for pedestrians, for drivers, for bus riders, for bicyclists than most other cities of its size, and it is more dangerous significantly than Buffalo and Syracuse. So city council members and the city administration, they are working on collecting community feedback to determine what can be done about this. Some of that is the use of technology in various ways. Now, we're collecting feedback of our own this hour. Ruth, I'm going to take your call in just a second. Bob wanted to know, how about driver's ed back in schools? Now only rich people can afford those private lessons. Well, Ruth in Rochester, I think on a similar topic. Hey, Ruth, go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good. Yeah, just sorry, briefly, I had a really bad accident a few years ago where both cars were totaled. It turned out to be a kid with her mom who had a permit. She turned illegally left in front of me. I was going 50 miles an hour. I was really grateful I didn't kill anybody, but I, after that, remember talking to several different people who had the same age children, and driver's ed in this state at least, and at this time at least, seems to be a fraction of what I went through when I did driver's ed. And I also have had like a lot of young employees who have expressed to me like they don't even understand how a four-way stop works and never learned that. And I'm like, is that part of what was researched when you guys were researching this this problem we have in the city, like whether driver's ed is something that needs to be bolstered, whether that's a state thing that has to happen, or whether that's like something that could happen in the city?
Ruth, it's a good question. I mean, you may be onto something there. Maybe a month ago, the light at Lake Avenue and Ridge was flashing red for the day, and it was absolutely insane. You just don't even try to get through that intersection. Just a lot of prayer. So, and I'm watching this going like, do people not know? Or if the lights out, if the lights out entirely, you just treat it like a four-way stop. So Ruth, I'm wondering the same kind of thing here. So, anybody want to jump in? Cody, do you want to?
Yeah, I want to jump in. It's always been really strange to me that we require cars to be inspected every 2 years, but drivers get a driver's license once and then they don't have to be inspected ever again. I mean, or at least until eyesight changes or whatnot. The roadways that we drive on today are really different from the roadways on which I learned how to drive in 1996, 1997. We had a colleague recently say, what are those green lanes even for? I don't even, what am I supposed to do there? What is that? Can I park there? Can I not? People genuinely don't know about it. I suspect that it is something to do with state funding, schools, and all of that. I think if we could look at some ways to expand, education of drivers on a more regular basis, that would be positive.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I think that there's bad decisions made about public education all the time. My day job at FoodLink, one of the things I have to talk about regularly is that they took home economics out of school years ago. I mean, people go through an entire education without once learning how to prepare food. We seem to prioritize some strange things and deprioritize some things that are mandatory, like driver's education. So
skills.
I'd love to have that conversation, but one of the beauties about Vision Zero, in my opinion, is that we are focusing on things that we can control, that we, the city of Rochester with a capital C, can control. We cannot control the curriculum in schools. We can control how our roads are designed. We can control how we think about enforcement. We can control speed limits. We have the control over those things, and we ought to exert them in the right ways. The Vision Zero platform does include public education. So I would encourage everyone, and I hope you actually can post the Vision Zero website with the report on it.
Yeah, we'll put it in our show notes, yep.
But the second element of the Vision Zero 10-point platform is the Traffic Safety Champions, where we're going to be rolling out more and more PSAs, things that Common Ground and that Reconnect have already led, and we're going to put some of the city's communications muscle behind it. But we can't replicate driver's ed. And we have to just identify the fact that there's some things we can control and other things that we can't.
All right, here's an email I'm going to kick to David Riley. Linda says, there are some lights in the city of Rochester that turn red and stay red for, and all caps here from Linda, a very long time. And when there is zero cross traffic and zero pedestrians. She says, I've seen City of Rochester vehicles go straight through those red lights after stopping, and I have also done that on purpose. What kind of red light mechanisms exist in the city to ensure that people aren't idle in their cars at red lights for very long periods of time for zero actual reasons? Is there any related complaint mechanism, and what is the process for correcting such ridiculousness? David Riley, ridiculousness.
So the Monroe County Department of Transportation operates the signal system in the city. So they maintain and program all of the traffic signals that you see on our streets. We do work closely with them. So if you see an issue with a traffic signal, if you feel like that light is too long, you can reach out to us through 311. They can also give you the direct contact, I believe, for the Monroe County DOT's dispatch to reach out to them. I know that we do work with them from time to time to review light timing. On pretty much all of the street projects that we're doing now, we are installing camera detection rather than, a lot of streets have loops buried under the street to detect when a motor vehicle pulls up, and that might trigger the signal to change. But on nearly every project we're doing now, we're using camera detection instead, which can see not only when a vehicle pulls up, but when a person walks up and is waiting to use the crosswalk, or when a cyclist pulls up to that light and is waiting for it to change, to try to be a little bit more responsive to everybody who's out on the roads. So I hear you. We're working on it, but give us a call if there's a specific light you want us to look at.
All right. Michael writes, this is on the red light cameras. He says, and again, if you're just joining us, we're not talking about, no one is talking about bringing back the original version of red light cameras. It is a prong of possible technological automation
that we're getting feedback about.
They're getting feedback about. There's not a vendor who's ready to roll this thing out. And if red light cameras were selected to come to be used in the city of Rochester, it would not be what people remember. Is that fair? I'm not trying to do PR for you. I'm trying to be journalistically accurate.
Yeah, but before you go any further, let me say this once and hopefully one more time. The next 3 meetings, Tuesday, May 12th, Edgerton R Center, 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 13th, Ryan R Center, which is on Webster Avenue, 6 p.m. And Saturday, May 16th, the Central Library Gleason Auditorium at 11 a.m. We have done one of these meetings in each of the 4 quadrants and one downtown. If you can't make it to one of the meetings, there's going to be a really, really widely spread community survey. We want your feedback on this. And I'll say this one more time if you give me the opportunity. Sorry to cut off the question you were going to ask. But if the overwhelming feedback from people is, we're happy with how things are, we don't want anything done, then nothing will happen. I want to be really clear about that. If that's what everyone says, then that's what will happen. But if people come to these conversations and say, I hated that old program, but I also identify and recognize that driving sure does feel a little bit different. It does now than it did 10 years ago. I feel a bit more unsafe. I have a number of seniors who say they will not leave their house because of how unsafe it feels to drive. If we get a lot of that feedback, then it's our duty to present a proposal to this community to consider.
So Michael says, red light cameras do not make specific problem intersections safer, and the money doesn't get spent on improvements for that intersection. It goes into the police general fund. Automated enforcement in general is ineffective. Good luck with making behaviors change. At least you'll make plenty of money.
For comments like Michael's, I really struggle with the level of confidence in that statement. That does not have to be how things are done. There are plenty of opportunities to create. We can create a fund at the city of Rochester with restricted funds for any purpose that we want, if we wanted to. So for him to say with such a degree of confidence that this is what it has to be is just simply wrong. I think one of the great concerns about automated enforcement as it was done in the city in the past was, as I mentioned before, the placement of cameras, but the other is that it felt like a cash grab. It certainly felt that way to me too, as I mentioned. If there was anything moving forward on this, if anything ever comes to bear, one thing that I would commit to, and Cody used the word transparency before, but I would commit to a clear, transparent way of accounting any of the dollars that came in for these programs.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the most significant thing would be for every dollar that came out of it to go right back into street design. Not necessarily at the specific intersection as the caller represented, but we have huge amounts of street design that we need to do in the city, and I think that's where any money should go if a program were to be designed.
Got to keep it tight. Go ahead.
Rochester wasn't the only city to do this poorly. So Chicago did it really poorly, and money went to the wrong places. And, there have been a lot of those bad experiences starting a decade ago. Vision Zero Network wrote a report about all the bad things that have been done and then gives very specific recommendations that policymakers can make to make it better.
Which, by the way, Cody, we are starting in the next 3 meetings to have printouts of those reports to give to people at each of them.
And I'll just say to Michael, who emailed, you heard the council member say, if they do this, there's no guarantee. We should be able to track the money that comes in with transparency.
Not should be able to. There are city accounting practices that require that.
I mean, journalists, citizens, they'll appreciate that. So
and
Yep.
I would ask Michael to come to one of the next 3 sessions and
Amen.
share his opinion and share his thoughts and maybe walk out of that room with a different perspective.
All right, David Riley, you get the last question. It comes from Dennis. He says one of the simplest and cheapest things cities could do to improve is road lines and crosswalk markings. Bright, clear lane lines and highly visible crosswalks could help drivers stay centered, slow down, and notice pedestrians sooner, especially at night, during rain, or in winter when markings fade. In places like Rochester, snow, salt, and plowing really wear road paint down fast. About 45 seconds, David, go ahead.
That's a great point. We do have an annual restriping program where we go out and are trying to touch up those lines every year. Again, we go back to the resource constraints. It's not necessarily possible to hit every street, so we try to prioritize, but one of those grants that we have gone after will fund us to restripe every faded crosswalk in the city over the next few years. So we will be out there putting them back down in reflective thermoplastic that any car coming up should be able to see very clearly, whether it's night or day.
All right, David, and I'll squeeze in Dallas's question. Why not just have giant speed bumps everywhere?
You know, there are different kinds of approaches that make sense for different kinds of streets. We do use speed humps on residential streets. We consider speed cushions even on some more busy streets. It's not necessarily the right solution for other types of streets. So it's certainly in the toolbox, but you have to pick the right tool for the right situation.
There are 3 public meetings next week focused on Vision Zero and getting your feedback. And the folks who are on this panel today would love to see you there. The first is next Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Yep.
All the details are going to be in our show notes when we post this show. Also, where people find more on Vision Zero.
City website, City Vision Zero. I'll make sure that you have the link as well.
Yeah, I'll get that too, because we'll put that up there for it. Thanks, everyone.
cityrochester.gov/Vision Zero.
There we go. Thank you, David Riley. David's a principal transportation specialist for the city. David, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Evan.
Co-chair of the Rock Vision Zero Committee and member of City Council, Mitch Gruber. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Please come out to these meetings. Make your voice heard. However you feel about this, we want to hear from you.
Cody Donahue, Erick Stephens, thank you both for being here. Nice
Happy
to see
Bike
you.
Week.
Thank you.
Happy Bike Week. We're talking more about that next hour. It's coming up.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.